Hi folks, and welcome to the channel. What? Oh! We did it! We did it! My subscriber count, what? That's like all I can say. A huge thank you to all of the new subscribers, and of course a big thank you to Tony C. Smith, who said some wonderful things about the channel on his recent video, which I know has sent an awful lot of people my way. There's been so many lovely things that people have been saying, and it is really wonderful. And of course, to celebrate 1,000 subscribers, we've got to do something, and today we've got a little giveaway for you. So do stay tuned to find out a little bit more about it later on. But you will have noticed this is not an allotment behind me, because today is all about the peppers, which are still indoors. They're currently under a grow light upstairs. And I know that Tony C. Smith likes growing his peppers, so hopefully he sent a few pepper heads my way. And if you're not into growing peppers yet, then hopefully you'll still stick around for what should be a really nice, relaxing video. I love doing this job. So let's talk a little bit about peppers, shall we? I have a massive thing for these plants. They kind of what got me into growing in the first place, really. My dad had a few plants and then he gave me some seeds, and I mean, the rest is history. I've been growing these since kind of 2018. Some successes, some failures along the way, lots of lessons learned, but these are about a month old now since they first germinated, some of them 5 weeks. So they're ready to be potted on, just into their first small pots. Some of them really leggy because I got the lighting a little bit wrong. First time ever using grow lights indoors. So today we're going to get these potted on. I'm going to talk a little bit about the varieties. Let's just get straight into potting these on, I think. I just wanted to talk quickly about the potting mix I'm going to be using for the chilies, because I do use quite a specific one whenever I'm working with chilies, all of which I grow in pots or big containers. But unashamedly, I copy the potting mix from ChilliChump, who is a fantastic YouTuber with a massive channel all about growing chilies. So if you've got any questions that aren't answered by this, I'll link it somewhere, probably in the doobly-doo below, because it's just a fantastic resource and he's a great guy. So what we're going to be using is general purpose compost. This stuff is New Horizons peat-free. I kind of endorse the peat-free compost because I've used them in the past and had no issues whatsoever. Just wait for that siren to go past. And then there's a few key additives. The first and probably the most important is perlite. This is kind of a naturally occurring mineral that goes through an industrial process and like kind of turns it like popcorn. So these are little white rocks that go in the soil, and they're fantastic for adding air and space into the soil. Really prevents soil compaction and gives the roots a bit more kind of freedom to travel through and seek out what they need in the soil. And also we're going to be adding vermiculite, which similar to perlite, naturally occurring, and that is really good for absorbing moisture and just meaning that you can get away with a little bit more time between watering your peppers. And lastly, where is it? I've lost it. Where is it? Here it is. I've got a big tub of blood, fish and bone. Now, in terms of quantities, this is super simple. We use 10 parts all-purpose compost, 1 part vermiculite, 1 part perlite, and then half a part of blood, fish and bone. And at this early stage, I'm going to reduce that a little bit more because they won't be in these pots for too long. Later on, we do use specific fertilizers as well, but that's just a really good additive for the soil. Now, personally, I like to decant these bags into sort of storage containers just because it makes it easy for transport up to the allotment. But you'll notice I'm wearing one of the masks, and that is because perlite is really dusty, and you do need to be careful when you're working around this in big quantities because the dust it kicks up is really quite nasty. So just something to be aware of. 10 scoops of compost, 1 scoop of vermiculite, mask back on, and 1 scoop of perlite. And then we just give it a nice big mix. And there's a few lumpy bumpy bits in this compost. Just a few little blocks like this, but I'm not too worried about it now that they're going on for their first potting. When they're in seed cells, you want to be a little bit more careful about those kind of things. You know, maybe give it a sift, which is what I did for my first ones. But now I'm not too worried about it. Let's get them in. Before we start potting on, I'm just jumping in quickly to talk about today's giveaway. I've partnered with Goodies Garden, who have a really cool Instagram account, and they also run Sammy's Scent Shop. It's a really cool little independent shop full of organic and kind of eco-friendly toiletries. things like soaps, shampoos. They've got candles and loads of plastic-free alternatives that you can kind of switch to for every day-to-day use. And they've agreed to send out one lucky viewer a little mystery gift box. So even if you're not into toiletries like me, then there might be something in it for you, because you might have a lovely gift you can give someone. So if you're interested, all you've got to do is enter a comment below. It can be about anything, and I'll use a random comment picker later on in the week to pick a winner. You do have to be a resident of the UK, but other than that, there's not really any strings attached. Anyway, let's get back to potting on the peppers. So here we have our first tray of peppers, and I'm going to be honest, this is the potting on that I find the most awkward. This first one where they go from cells into their tiny little pots. One thing that is worth pointing out, the key indicator for when they're ready for their first pot is really the number of true leaves. So after the first little cotyledons that you get, they start to put on true leaves. Once you've got the first 2 sets, then that's a good sign that they're ready. And we've got some that were really late germinating, like this CGN 19. We've got a Reaper Douglah in the other tray that's only just germinated as well. I had no hope for that, but it's just come up. So those ones I'm going to leave in little cells. So I'm just going to start from the bottom, and first I'm going to take these little plant labels, which are actually really handy for slipping down the side of the cell and should make it a little bit easier to then pop out. And this first one is one of my Poblanos, and hopefully I can just push on the bottom, and then using the leaves we can just hopefully pull the whole lot up. And you can see pretty good root growth. This one is definitely ready. And this is where I say that it gets a little bit awkward, because these are so leggy. What I really want to do is make sure that we can get the soil kind of up to these cotyledons. And when you look at the size of these pots, that means it kind of wants to go in without any other soil. But with these, I'm going to have to drop them straight in and then top it up with soil. And of course, this isn't ideal because the majority of the roots are at the bottom, but the roots will now grow from the stem. They're similar to tomatoes, and this portion of the pot will be filled up, which, as I said, isn't ideal, but it's going to mean that we've got a really strong plant for the future and when we come to pot up to the next sides. It's quite interesting. Some people don't actually believe you when you tell them that chili peppers are the same as tomatoes and that they will grow from the stem. But here's a really fantastic example of a stem doing just that, starting to send out new shoots. You don't really want to see this. This is a bad sign for your pepper, but it is useful for proving that point. And now we're just going to hit fast forward, and I'm going to speed through these until there's another interesting one that I want to talk about. Okay, so we have our first kind of interesting one. This one here is a CGN 19196, which is just the most incredible name. And you can see it does have a second set of leaves, but they're not quite fully established. And realistically, this one is kind of like you could leave it in here, or you could put it on these purple tigers down here. These are looking really small, and they've not really been growing much recently. So I'm a little bit concerned about these guys. I think I'm going to leave these in the cells for a little while longer. Because I'm leaving those, I might as well leave the CGN for another week or so as well. Oh, we do have a little Poblano down here as well. This has just got its cotyledons, another very late germinator. So the ones that have germinated late, it's not a cause for concern. It's the ones over here, the purple tigers, that have germinated for quite a long time but aren't actually growing, that give me a bit of cause for concern. But I'm sure it'll all be fine. And here we have tray number 2. The main difference between this tray and the last one is that this is the one that's got my super hots in it. And you'll notice that they're dramatically shorter than the taller species. And that's just because they took a little while longer to germinate. And by the time that they had germinated, I'd got the light level correct. You can see at the back here as well, there's the Habaneros, certainly lower. But same as before, let's get these potted on. next ones should be a little bit interesting. I've got the super hots to do, and these look really well developed in terms of their leaves. Some really nice broad leaves. But I'm just interested to see whether or not they're actually root bound. And to me, that looks pretty good. There's just enough roots here. Maybe a little bit less, and I'd be a bit worried that this was too soon, but I think this is pretty much bang on what we want. And these don't have such a stem, so for these, I can actually fill the bottom of the pot a bit more. Push down a little, and then top up. Much easier to do these than the leggy ones. So this next one's an interesting one. This is my Peach Ghost, which is a super hot. I've grown this from seed, and because this was homegrown seed, I planted a few in each of these modules. You can see in here we've got 2 plants. These just need kind of teasing apart, and then they can each have their own pot. But you do need to be just really delicate. And these are a little on the immature side as well, which is a good kind of time to do this because they won't be too entangled. And then once again, we always want to avoid damaging the stem. So we hold by the leaves, let the weight of the soil slowly tease them apart. We don't want to be too aggressive, just a little shake, and they should sort of untangle themselves. This is damaging, it will set the plants back, but they will recover eventually. And if you do this, these can both go in their own pots. You want to make sure this hole is nice and deep so the roots don't all get tangled up, and try and get them in as much as you can. Kind of tease them down into the soil. And this will shock this plant. This will go into quite bad transplant shock, but it'll all be okay in the end. So just here we've got our Cayenne, and once again we've got here 2 in one cell because these were sown from my own seed. And these are just one of my favourite plants. They're common as muck, not a particularly rare variety, but just some of the best taste and bang for your buck. But you can see these are definitely ready to pot on. And this is a good example earlier when I was saying it's not too bad if you've got 2 in the same cell if they're quite early, because they'll come away quite easily. These 2 are the opposite. These have been left in probably a bit too long. So as I try and tease these apart, a lot of these roots are going to rip. Gravity isn't going to do it if I just do this, so I will have to apply a little bit of force, which is really, really scary. I don't enjoy doing it. And then once they start to come away, yeah, this is not ideal. You can see that this one has just lost a lot of its root ball, so not ideal. It'll be quite interesting to see whether or not these bounce back and recover, but that's the Cayenne done, 4 plants. And here we have the mystery pepper. I mentioned this in my last episode, really over the moon with this. And let me take you in close because there's a really weird thing here. At first it's almost impossible to see, but right at the base of this plant, there's another tiny little leaf. I think this is another seedling, but for a long time it was like completely decapitated. But this one I just thought was dead and I left it, but we've got a little leaf, which is just remarkable. And the mystery pepper, you may remember I mentioned in the last episode, and of all the peppers, this is the one that I want to grow. This is the one that I want to do the best because I have no idea what it is, but it is the nicest pepper I've ever tasted. If this plant dies, I will be very upset. But this is the last one to pot on, and then we're golden. So we're pretty much all potted up, and you can see them just down here. Really, really satisfying job. Absolutely love to see this. And you can see a little bit leggy still. It would have been nice if some of these were a little bit deeper, but as time goes on, it'll all come good in the end. Well folks, there we are. We are all potted up, and if I do say so myself, I think these look really, really good. I love potting on. I think it's one of the most zen jobs in the garden. I really, really enjoy it. There's something about getting kind of up close and personal with all the plants. You get a bit of a connection with them, not to sound too hippie, and I just think they look great afterwards. You know, it's really good, and it's lovely knowing that they're kind of like in their new home. You know, you're nurturing them at this stage, and it's really a really nice feeling. Hopefully you picked up a few little tips on the way if you're growing your own chilies. Like I say, I'm not really a how-to channel. I do the odd video here and there, but I'm by no means an expert, so it's useless me doing it. And there's loads of people like Simplify Gardening, channels like that, which have done it all before basically. So there's not much for me to add. I just love sharing this kind of journey because I know some people enjoy watching it, and I really enjoy making it. So I think all that's left for me to do is to give these a good water. But other than that, it's just to say thank you ever so much for watching. Please remember to do all the YouTube stuff if you want to. It does help support the channel. But other than that, hopefully I'll see you again next time.